out with a new letter of support to directly refute allegations released earlier today by Michael Avenatti, saying, quote, Brett Kavanaugh's a good man. He has always treated women with respect and decency. He is a man of honor, integrity, and compassion. These shameful attacks must end. This process is a disgrace and is harming good people. There are also letters of support for Christine Blasey, as well, from her friends and supporters. My next guest, Melissa Hennessy, has known Judge Kavanaugh for more than 35 years. She was also at these parties that he describes when they were in high school. Melissa, good to have you with us today. Thank you very much for being here. So,
thank you for having me, Martha.
First of all, let's put the calendar up again, because this calendar, I think, is going to become an interesting part of this equation. And he kept this calendar, and he saved it, and he turned it over to the investigators. And it details Beach Week, which has now become an issue in this latest allegation by this woman who says that she witnessed this horrific behavior of gang rape and people waiting online to go into bedrooms. And she says that she saw Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh waiting on one of those lines. What do you say?
I say there's no way that happened. Martha, I've known Brett for so long, and we all went to Beach Week, all the boys' schools and the girls' schools, and we would go as big groups. And, these were typically 3-bedroom condos we'd rent with 20 kids. I mean, there were people all over the place. There is no way any of that could have happened. I just think somebody would have seen it. And we all talked. We were very, very close.
So, and when you look at these 3 women who have made these allegations, now Ramirez is different because she's at Yale. She's not making a high school accusation, but the other 2 women are, and maybe we can put their pictures up on the screen. Do you know either of these women? Do you recognize them?
No, I don't. I did not recognize them. I didn't even recognize their names, quite frankly. Brett and I graduated in '83, and I think Dr. Ford graduated in '84, so she would have been a year younger than us. And I honestly just don't remember the name.
So this new allegation, and it's very sketchy, we're just getting this new allegation, but it's a woman who says that in 1998, she was out in Washington, D.C. with him, and she describes behavior that is somewhat similar to some of the other descriptions that we've gotten, with this sort of aggressive, pushing up against a wall, and she claims that her daughter witnessed it. She was there with them, and 3 other people who were also there witnessed it. So, when you hear all of these different allegations and they have similarities in them, how do you square the fact that it doesn't match up at all with the person that you know?
I mean, when I first heard these, Martha, I couldn't even wrap my head around this. It was not the Brett I knew. I mean, we dated. He was always so sweet and kind. I can't, the whole group we ran with was so wonderful.
What about Mark Judge? What can you tell me about Mark Judge?
Oh, Mark Judge was kind of funny. He loved The Who. He loved rock and roll. But I can't even imagine him. None of these guys. And every time I open another newspaper or something, another name comes out, and I feel like, oh, for heaven's sakes, there's no way any of this happened. And I don't know why anyone would even accuse Brett of something like that. He was a great guy in high school, and I even kept up with him kind of through college and post-college until I moved to Chicago. It was always wonderful seeing him. He was always so nice and respectful. And I can imagine that he was the same guy in the 90s when I was here in Chicago and he was still back in D.C.
Yeah.
This is beyond belief.
I mean, he referred to this latest allegation as ridiculous, and he said he felt like he was in the Twilight Zone, which kind of sounds like what you're saying as well, that it just seems like completely divergent parallel realities, which I guess everybody's going to try to figure out some way to reconcile when this hearing happens tomorrow. But why do you think Mark Judge hasn't come forward to stand up for him more, since he's the person who's placed in the room by Christine Blasey Ford?
He's placed in the room by Dr. Ford, but, Mark Judge, I don't think had anything to do with this. So I feel like, why does he need to step forward to defend himself or Judge Kavanaugh if nothing even happened? He probably feels that if he says anything, they're going to attack him. And I would be a little bit nervous if I were him also. People make up these stories, and now anyone is fair game. It's getting crazy. It really, really is.
Melissa, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here tonight. We'll see where this whole thing goes. Good to have your side of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Have a good evening.
You too. So joining me now, Charlie Hurt, opinion editor at The Washington Times, and Jessica Tarlov, senior director of research at Bustle.com. Both are Fox News contributors. Good to have both of you with us. Jessica, let me start with you. I mean, this is very tricky. I mean, these people are giving completely divergent stories about the same person.
The same person, yes, and also about Mark Judge,
yeah.
which your last guest referred to. He has an ex-girlfriend now who's come out and said that she can testify to the fact that these parties, these lineup parties, which is what today's new accuser, the one who has a sworn affidavit and is being represented by Michael Avenatti, said was going on at these parties. I think,
But I just want to point out, I'm just going to interrupt you, because this girlfriend, from what I read today, and you tell me if you heard something different, she says that Mark Judge talked about this, but described them as consensual.
Absolutely.
He said, I feel bad about some of these things that I did in high school, but it was all consensual. And there's a big, huge difference.
Well, there's an absolutely huge difference between that, but there's also an absolutely huge difference between how Brett Kavanaugh has been portraying himself and the fact that these parties did exist and that he may have been in the quote lineup.
All right, let's take a look at this soundbite, and then we're going to get Charlie in on this. Let's watch.
Women are very angry. I got 52% with women. Everyone said this couldn't happen. 52%. Women are so angry. And I frankly think that they like what the Republicans are doing, but I think they would have liked to have seen it go a lot faster.
So just to set that up, he's talking about women who he says are speaking out on behalf of Judge Kavanaugh, Charlie. And he says that he is hearing from a lot of women. I've also heard from women who, from both sides of the fence. But there are definitely a lot of women out there who think this process is horrific.
Well, and I think that's really why the most troubling part of all of this, I mean, obviously the accusations are the most troubling part of all of it, but in terms of what's going on now, the most troubling part of it is the fact that you have these very serious allegations that they're leveled, and it's not the typical sort of high school stupidity that you would expect from underage drinking kids. It's predatory behavior. It's disqualifying, and you have a United States Senate where you have members out and out saying that the burden is on the accused to prove that he's not guilty, and you have people dismissing the whole notion of due process, and you have somebody like Senator Gillibrand go on the Senate floor today and start banging her desk, talking about how we're not looking to put him in jail, to sit in a courtroom. We just want to get to the truth, as if our entire court system isn't set up to do just that. And it really does sort of begin to make a lot of people think that this has just turned into a partisan football, like these people here in Washington do with everything. And this is far too serious to be your typical partisan political football. And I think Republicans have bent over backwards to make sure that they treat Dr. Ford with respect, treat her allegations with respect. They do want to hear her story, and that is ultimately what the president said today during the press conference, was that he's open to listening. He wants to hear what she has to say. But Brett, none of this is in a vacuum. Brett Kavanaugh has built a sterling reputation for himself over a long period of time. I would argue that a predator like that doesn't change his stripes when he grows up.
We will see.